Hello everyone, my name is Rachel Seraphine and I will be presenting my research on the Menomonee River Valley and this area's redevelopment over the past few decades. I completed this research as part of my Environment and Society Sociology course, where our task was to create a narrative centered around one area we felt connected to and examine its value under a variety of different lenses coinciding with the course material. So this is the Menomonee River Valley today, rich with parks, museums, and restaurants. It stretches all the way from Miller Park in the west to the Harley-Davidson Museum in the east. And this area is not only full of restaurants and other attractions, it also contains a lot of green space and recreational areas, as well as essential city operations. This is an early illustration of Milwaukee sometime in the 1800s to early 1900s before the industrial boom began. There were plenty of churches, schoolhouses, and court and municipal buildings at this time, but I'd like to direct your attention to where the river exists at the left of this depiction. This does a great job showing how the valley started as a very underdeveloped area before shifting to a more productive component of Milwaukee in the mid-1900s. By the mid-1900s, Milwaukee was named the machine shop of the world, all thanks to rapid industrialization centralized around the river. The expanding manufacturing industry utilized the river's ability to quickly connect businesses and create an area with a boosted economy and increased job market. As quickly as it began, however, the boom ended, and by 1999, the area was left degraded, run down, and environmentally damaged. So these photographs depict the boom at its peak on the left and its decline by 1999 on the right. With the institution of the new century, redevelopment efforts began, and this 2016 photo on the bottom right shows how far the area has come. So how did we achieve such prosperity after the boom faded out? Environmental Values is a book by O'Neill, Holland, and Light, and it gives some insight on this problem. This text highlights the importance of maintaining both natural capital and man-made capital in order to maximize the amount of sustainability that can be achieved in a particular region. The author stressed that strong sustainability can only be achieved through a balance of these two values, and the Menomonee River Valley exemplifies both. The area of natural capital that I'd like to focus on involves salmon populations. These fish were initially introduced to control the invasive species of alewives, which is a herring species, and along with their thriving population, they incidentally acted as a new source of income for local fishermen. These salmon had much greater value in the late 1900s when a study done on fish populations transformed into a discovery of how poor the water quality had become. This materialized into the largest documented waterborne disease outbreak in U.S. history, the 93 Cryptosporidium outbreak, and prompted a major evaluation of safe water measures for Milwaukee. Now, salmon can be spotted in various areas, including Three Bridges Park and near the Brewers Stadium. In terms of man-made value, the river has always functioned as a shipping route and a way to transport goods, and now it takes on a really great recreational value. This especially works in Three Bridges Park, where there is a kayak launch and plenty of places to cast a reel and go fishing. Milwaukee natives and visitors alike also enjoy the restaurant scenes, including party boat cruises like the paddle taverns, and the aesthetic value of dining and enjoying the many waterfront restaurants. Now, natural and man-made capital complement one another to establish sustainable use for all. But when this balance is thrown off, it is often the natural capital that seems to suffer, and it is much more difficult to restabilize. For example, if the river were to become excessively polluted, the natural capital of the salmon and water would be damaged. Not only is it difficult to solve this issue, it also damages the man-made capital and aesthetic value of a clean and flourishing river. So leading up to this point, we've focused on how redevelopment has led to an increase in the value in land and species that constitute the valley. While this value is inherently good for many, I pause to wonder how sustainable the changes we've made really were. Aldo Leopold introduces the concept of land as an energy circuit, and with specific reference to his last point here, that man-made changes, as compared to evolutionary ones, have effects more comprehensive and complicated than can be foreseen. This creates two major questions. which I will address on the next slide. So when looking at the changes that have been made, the land has certainly adapted to the needs and the new order of the community, including that greater want for tourism and recreation and increasing the economic benefit to the community. Now, additionally, our changes have been mindful of ecological degradation, culminating with the building of the Urban Ecology Center and installation of informational signage and expansion of the Hank Aaron State Trail. And it seems as though we have attained some level of sustainability, especially with those measures that were put into place. But how we achieve such positive results calls on a balance of common space governance. Eleanor Ostrom presents her book, Governing the Commons, as a means of explaining how common spaces or public areas are managed for the good of the whole. The Menomonee River Valley perfectly exemplifies how her theories operate, as a variety of influential bodies were involved in the redevelopment initiative. Both public opinion and private business goals intertwined to govern these future plans. So to give a short synopsis of what these governing bodies decided, this chart just shows you the difference in priorities between private businesses on the left and public opinion on the right. This all comes from the Menomonee Valley 2.0 Comprehensive Area Plan outlined by the City of Milwaukee. And while the private sector was concerned on more overarching ideas, the public sector really focused on those small-scale ideas like safety, usability, and attractions. However, one striking aspect that I'd like to point out here was homogeneous between the groups, and it involved improving the aesthetics of the area. And I'll come back to that in a minute. Tim Jackson's book, Prosperity Without Growth, details the direct relationship environmental degradation has with capitalistic economic growth. He often refers to this as being coupled together and stresses the importance of decoupling such that we don't follow such a precarious path towards constantly increasing our economic growth at the expense of increasing things like carbon emissions and degrading ecological systems. That's what the graph shows here. That increase in economic growth follows almost exactly how the carbon dioxide emissions are going up. And the big question I'm getting at here, it kind of remains after all of the things we've covered. Did we accomplish a heightened level of prosperity when redevelopment was instituted without causing that further ecological degradation? Did we achieve prosperity, or did we end up just following the norm? So to answer this question, we must analyze how redevelopment changed the area. If you simply compare the photographs, there have been a significant improvement with the institution of parks and businesses where a wasted post-industrial space used to exist. It is significantly cleaner, and especially with some of the environmental strategies outlined on the left, like increasing tree coverage and green roofs and porous pavement, as well as the aesthetic value of the community, we have significantly improved the region. But did we achieve the maximum amount of prosperity that this region has potential for, and is it actually achieving prosperity if we have not maximized our sustainable use of the land? It costs about $1 billion to redevelop the valley, and while it has had great positive impacts, I'm left wondering, could this money have been used better to help the people of the community and additionally make businesses even more sustainable? And so I'm left with this final question. Is our draw to aesthetics as an indicator of economic growth exemplifying implied prosperity rather than the actual manifestation of it? We see these material things that have aesthetic function, like the planters on the sidewalks and modern-looking buildings with big windows, and attribute them as prosperous and valuable in our society. And in a way that they are. They attract more customers, more tourism. They are economically prosperous. But I think we as individuals ignore the actual big picture, and that our prosperity is not strictly dependent on material goods or economic growth. It depends greatly on our use of resources, and imagine if that money used to build up the valley could have gone towards both improving the aesthetics as well as making more affordable housing, even more parks and green spaces, and making the factories more ecologically sustainable. So to quickly wrap up and answer my own question, I do believe that we as a society let aesthetics get in the way of seeing our true level of prosperity. In order to maintain our strong level of sustainability that we're on the right track for, especially exemplified in the Valley, we need to continue to realize that natural capital comes in the forms of parks and rivers and not just planters and pretty stuff along the sidewalk. While I see the Valley as a very positive example of how we have taken environmental degradation and keeping the environment sustainable under consideration, I do agree that we are still very far from decoupling economic damage from or environmental damage from economic growth. And in order to make these truly impactful changes, we will have to come together to create a more mindful plan and establish environmental revival into future planning. Thank you very much.